All right, guys, what's going on? It's Jack, and welcome back to another video. So recently, I've seen online, whether it's in the form of a few podcasts that I've been listening to here and there during some downtime at work or while I'm multitasking at work, or whether it's because of other videos I've seen from other YouTubers, as well as my own opinion. A lot of people will say that Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War was the closest Call of Duty that we got to a classic Call of Duty. And I think that's one of the reasons why Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is one of the more liked, if not the most liked, Call of Duty that we had over the last 5 to 6 years. Now, I know that Modern Warfare 3, the current Call of Duty out right now in its main life cycle, I know there's been a lot of love from the community of that as well, because a lot of people are saying, well, it feels very arcadey, so to speak, unlike Modern Warfare 2 or unlike Modern Warfare 2019 or whatnot. So, but I've from what I've seen, the majority of people choose Black Ops Cold War, and Black Ops Cold War was the most recent arcade-ish type of COD that we've had that was a step closer to what the classic Call of Duty experience was. And then previously to that, we had Black Ops 4, right? So now when you look at XDefiant, what is XDefiant's biggest draw? Right now, a lot of people will look at the surface and they'll say, well, XDefiant's biggest draw is the fact that there's no skill-based matchmaking / engagement optimized matchmaking in pubs. Now that is true, but it's not the entire picture. I will actually say that XDefiant's biggest draw is that it aims to give us that classic Call of Duty, granted it's an alternative, that classic arcade shooter / arena shooter that we had during the OG days, or should I say, you know, from like, let's say 2018 and previously. However, it's also adding in the things of today that are absolute necessities for that kind of a shooter these days. For instance, some of the features, like obviously being able to customize your FOV and things like that, and the way the speed works. Like if you look at the classic Call of Duty games, like if you look at, like, let's say a Call of Duty Ghosts or even a Black Ops 2 or whatnot, these games are actually, even though they would be fast-paced, they're noticeably slower than what we've been getting recently, right? So by default, like even when you look at Black Ops Cold War, it's significantly faster than, let's say, well, I don't know, like a Black Ops 2, right? Obviously, of course, you've got your infinite sprint and all that kind of stuff. I get it, but you get the point, right? By default, the game is faster, right? And I think that's one of the things that has that's been the biggest, one of the bigger pieces of evolution in terms of what's been going on with Call of Duty, or even shooters in general. When you look at your average shooter in general, a lot of them are just faster. Some of them it's because they've implemented sprint or implemented infinite sprint, but there's just more to it than that. Like when you just look at the average speed and the pacing, even if it's a defensive game, it's still, like when you move, it's still faster, right? You can go from 0 to 100 miles an hour a hell of a lot faster than you could in a more classic title, right? So that's also something that I believe we should be aware of as well. And XDefiant's biggest draw is that we're actually getting like the best of both worlds in the form of a classic, true arcade shooter. Because when you look at Call of Duty, it's not entirely itself anymore. It's gone through a lot of evolutions and mutations, do I dare say, right? If you were to make any comparisons, it's kind of like a mutation, so to speak. It's not entirely itself anymore. Now, some people will believe that this is natural, this is normal. How many more directions can Call of Duty go? The community has been asking for a lot of changes over the years and such and such. And when you look at it from that side of the fence, you're absolutely right. Because back in the day, what did people want? They wanted change, so what did they do? They went to advanced movement. And then people decided that, well, we want to kind of go back to the boots on the ground. So what did they do? They went back to boots on the ground. And then after that, what did they do? They realized the popularity of Battle Royale. So guess what? We got Blackout, right? And then after that, we got realism, so to speak, right? A hybrid tactical shooter with some arcadiness thrown in, right? In the form of Modern Warfare 2019. And then ever since then, it's just kind of been, well, you know, giving different percentages is to the type of style of game that they want to present us, right? They're kind of mixing around the ingredients. It's like all the ingredients are still there, but they're mixing around those ingredients, right? That have been implemented in so many different directions that Call of Duty has taken, right? So now, so when you look at it from that aspect, it makes sense. But there's also been a decent chunk of the community, both casual and non-casual alike, that basically miss that classic arcade shooter that is actually simple. A game doesn't really need to be complicated, and it doesn't need to have all the ingredients in the world in there for it to be successful. And I think the developers of XDefiant noticed this, and they said, you know what, yeah, we're going to do this because we noticed that there's room for both. Obviously it's really great that with XDefiant releasing that there is another arcade shooter out there. You know why? Not because it has a chance to beat Call of Duty or anything like that. We've already mentioned this. XDefiant is not the Call of Duty killer, and the aim is not to take down Call of Duty. As a matter of fact, I will say that there is a possibility that XDefiant can make Call of Duty better because it's not going to be the only arcade shooter out there on the market. And eventually, somebody had to step up first, and that game is XDefiant, right? And then if XDefiant succeeds, and we need to support it in order to help it succeed, believe it or not, we have to, if we want that to happen. So, if it does succeed, then what's going to happen is we may have, like Battle Royale, for instance, we may have a handful of different arcade shooters that we can play, right? As opposed to just one or two or both, because believe it or not, there are members of the community that prefer one over the other. There are other members of the community that will play both and alternate in accordance with their mood, and that's just the way it is. Everybody's got their different preferences, and that's perfectly fine, and for different reasons, and again, that's perfectly fine. So the biggest draw for XDefiant that will make it succeed is that it doesn't really aim to be so complicated. Call of Duty never really needed to be complicated to succeed in the first place. It just ended up evolving into what we are now. And obviously we've seen where that evolution ends, right? And not all people are on board with that. A lot of people, they'll still like COD and they'll still play it, but they won't enjoy it quite like they used to because sometimes there's just too much in there, and sometimes less is more. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's not all about quantity. It's not all about how many attachments are on option for the weapon, so to speak, just to name one example, right? It's more about quality. And if you look at previous Call of Duty titles, one of the things that made them so great in the first place was because they were high quality games. I mean, some people would still say that they still are high quality games, but if you've been around since the classic OG days, right? Like let's say Black Ops 4 and before, you'll kind of understand what I mean. So it's aiming to give us what we've been missing, but with its own flavor and its own way of doing things, so to speak, along with some transparency and content that is going to be given throughout the months to come. And ultimately, especially as a Call of Duty refugee myself, and I know I'm not the only one, I'm pretty sure there are some of you that are watching this as well, whether you're a content creator or not, that are fellow Call of Duty refugees. I think I speak for a lot of us. I don't know how many of us I speak for, but I think I speak for a decent amount of us, a substantial amount of us, a significant amount of us when I say that it doesn't need to be complicated. I think we appreciate simplicity. And that's what Call of Duty always was at its core. Easy to get into, hard to master, right? Or more challenging to master, and yet always rewarding, right? No matter how bad you did or no matter how good you did, it was always rewarding, and that's what kept you coming back, right? That was the addictive factor. Now, granted, when you got better and you did better, it amplified the effect, right? It gave you even more of a dopamine effect, right? But at the same time, there was always a standard. You were always guaranteed a certain amount of enjoyment with the game, no matter how well or how bad you played, right? And now with what Call of Duty's been doing currently, whether it's the algorithm that you want to blame, or whether it's the game design you want to blame, or the lack of game design, the lack of originality, or whatever it is, the cut and paste, whatever it is, right? For whatever reason, you're not guaranteed to always get that hint of dopamine that you paid $70 of your hard-earned money in order to get, right? And that is what XDefiant is aiming to do. And better yet, it's going to be free to play, right? And again, if it manages to do this and succeeds, you can bet your ass that I'm going to be supporting it. I will be gifting battle passes left and right. And I'm a person that never gets battle passes, right? But in order to support this game, especially if I see everything coming to fruition, you can bet your ass that I'm going to support it all year long. And I will be gifting battle passes. You guys come to my stream, and if if I'm gifting battle passes, I have absolutely no problem. And again, I'm not going to be gifting them because you come to the stream. I'm going to be gifting them because I want to support this game, because the game is doing what we've been wanting and asking for so many years. And because it stood up to the plate and it said, you know what, we're going to try. Now, is it a guarantee that the game is going to succeed? There's no guarantees. There's absolutely no guarantees. However, if we do support it, we increase those chances significantly. And if the game does its part, and if we enjoy it the way it's meant to be played, the way it's meant to be enjoyed, and what they're offering, then absolutely they deserve our support. But if they screw up, though, I will say this: if they do screw up, yeah, we're not going to support the game. And I'm, like I said before, I'm an unapologetic XDefiant supporter. However, if I see a lot of the same stuff that I've seen in the past and in current day with Call of Duty, no, I'm not going to support the game. No, because if I see that we're going to take the same route again, the same road that's going to lead to the same result that we've been getting with Call of Duty, then why in the world would I support such a thing? But if everything is done right, then yeah, I'm going to support it. So, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who feels this way either. So anyway, with that being said, that to me is what personally is the true strength of XDefiant, potentially, right? And that's why I have all the hopes in the world that the game will do it right and that it will succeed. And at the end of the day, if we end up getting more arcade shooters because of it, I guess we can thank XDefiant for it. But anyway, with that being said, I want to know how you feel about this. Do you agree with what I said? Do you disagree? And are you excited about the playtest tomorrow? Are you going to be giving it a shot? What are your hopes? What are your wants and needs and stuff like that? Let me know how you feel in the comment section below. All opinions are welcomed around here. So with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.